Hey guys, King Kong 9100 here. So many of you may not know this, but I have always been a huge Spider-Man fan. So when Civil War was coming out, I was super stoked. But then followed Spider-Man Homecoming and I ate my own ass. Why? Because Spider-Man sucked, the characters sucked, the suit sucked, Guillermo sucked, and the goddamn story sucked. Why is this? Now, I could go on and on about that, but that's a whole other TikTok vid. So, if you guys want to know my gripe with that film, then sound off in the comments and I'll make another video on that topic. But today, I wanted to talk about how I would have gone about making the MCU Spider-Man a legitimate Spider-Man. I think Ultimate is the best rendition of Peter Parker and a high school Spider-Man in general. I'm not a fan of 616, who graduated 28 issues in, I believe. Andrew Garfield was perfect for the role. I mean, his series had the best CGI and the best cast. And come on, Flash in that film? Unbeatable. By far the best adaptation of that character. It just suffered from shitty writing, as we all know. But Tom Holland works just as well, so him as an actor is fine. So characters. I think Peter should be in high school for 4 films. That seems like a really good amount. He has to be in high school for at least a trilogy. Also, give Tom Holland the ultimate Peter Parker haircut he got and posted on Instagram. I mean, I think he named it Johnny Depp, as like in the caption. So, really good hairstyle for Peter Parker. I like how Andrew's films had enough respect to have Peter be alone, at least in the first film. And I think that's how it should have been in the MCU for at least 1 film or maybe even 2. There would be proper traces of Harry Osborn as Peter's longtime childhood friend, maybe have pictures of him or Aunt May talking about him. And we would also have Mary Jane in the film instead of Liz Allen. Peter and Mary Jane are going to have a relationship close to Ultimate and a mix of Andrew/Emma Stone. These two are meant to be, but Peter has too much going on with his powers to risk MJ's life. It's the usual Spider-Man story, again, following close to Ultimate. Peter and MJ would date in the second film, but the first one, Peter truly struggles. So, Peter is alone in this film, just like Andrew Garfield's was, and this one is teased a tiny bit more by Flash, and he would have a solid foundation with MJ that slightly spirals into a rocky relationship until he reveals who he is to her and her only. So, let's talk about Spider-Man himself. I mean, MCU pretty much nailed him, but where he starts to deteriorate and be terrible is the age-old complaint of him sucking Tony Stark off. It's true, he really does. So, I would have him admire Tony, but not call him when bad guys are there. Like, he needs to take them on himself like a truly self-made Spider-Man. He would also have real consequences, not Daddy Stark took my suit, but real life repercussions from being Spider-Man, like getting shot at, suffering a bullet wound at least at one point when he's starting out as Spider-Man, and being bruised up, not being able to avoid Aunt May seeing them, like in Andrew Garfield's film. Another big part of his character is it's not safe to have a relationship with him, and he suffers a ton of loss. You need to have Peter think about Uncle Ben often. Don't just trade Uncle Ben for Tony Stark. So that about wraps up characters. Alright, let's talk suit. I hate the MCU suit. Both suits have just sucked. For one thing, it needs raised webbing. It should feel like TASM 2's suit, which looked realistic as the suit had ripples and waves and looked like real cloth. Keep the TASM 2 spider emblems and have the eyes look like the MCU's but non-robotic. Take out the AI completely. The reason we don't want robotic eyes is because we want the eyes to move like Deadpool's, as well as in the Ultimate and Spectacular Spider-Man cartoons. It's like, Peter needs to start with a different suit, and by the second film he'd have a cooler suit that's more advanced, kinda like in TASM and TASM 2. There would be the utility belt and web shooters, and again, he would have expressive eyes like Deadpool, just without the eyes themselves having to be robotic lenses. When he would be battle damaged, he would have one lens missing, a torn suit, and a torn spider emblem with some blood here and there. Speaking of battle damage, let's see how that would come about in the story itself. So I'm not too sure about the story. I think my perfect Spider-Man film would be a different video topic because we're discussing Spidey in the MCU in particular. In the MCU, I partially feel like in Civil War, Spider-Man should have switched sides like in the comics and nearly get beat to death, but it would be way too early for that since Civil War was our first showing of him in the MCU. So that would go with our perfect Spider-Man film video and not this one. So scratch that. Keep Civil War the way it is. Spider-Man would fight the same villain, would be alone, so none of the extracurricular activities stuff like the decathlon. I'm real vague about the story right now, like I'm not too sure how to put it. I mean, have J. Jonah Jameson there, played by you-know-who and Simmons only. Like, the only other person I think should play Jameson is Ice Cube. And even then, it's like 20/80 for me. We get our big villain fight, and then maybe MJ suffers a loss or is in serious danger. Someone dies, Peter screams in sorrow like in TASM, and we get the breakup scene exactly like TASM. Peter is like extremely wounded from the fight too. So, yeah. I mean, Aunt May doesn't find out about Peter until like the 4th film, but she gets a hunch during the 3rd. So yeah, some miscellaneous thoughts. I really love Peter being small compared to his opponents like in Ultimate, and as well as being compared to other Avengers. I think he should be very strong and quick and whatnot, and we get to see the spider sense in this one. Going off script for a second, but I would really love to see Peter with his mask like over his mouth where he's eating like a hot dog or something. I'd love seeing like those moments like that look exactly like the comic book. And I also would like to see Peter with his backpack, like when he's fighting Kingpin, like in Ultimate. We would get traces of Gwen Stacy in the 1st and 2nd film. Peter and MJ would date, but a third of the way through the 2nd film, MJ nearly dies, so they would break up. Exactly the way they broke up in Ultimate. Gwen is introduced in the beginning of the 2nd film, and they date in the 3rd film, but by the 4th film, she dies like in TASM 2. Remember that Peter has a fleshed out relationship with MJ, Gwen, Aunt May, Tony Stark, etc. He would interact with other heroes in the MCU and show up to help in Avengers battles and whatnot, but he would always be solo. By the way, about the relationship stuff, there would be no overlapping, and like Peter just moves on to Gwen and forgets MJ completely. Like him and Gwen talk in Spider-Man 2, but yeah. I don't want to see no overlapping, or no, he can't just break up with one girl and go with another in the same film. That's just not Peter Parker. Oh yeah, when Gwen dies in the 4th film, you better keep the TASM 2 ending, where the original ending, where the Goblin would make fun of Peter because of the way Gwen died and saying like, "You fool, like she died before your webbing even touched her, or before she even hit the ground." And in the original ending for TASM 2, I mean, for those who don't know, I'm sure a lot of you know this, but in the original ending for TASM 2, Goblin teases Peter because Gwen died, and Peter just loses it. You see in one of the TV spots where he's screaming not in agony, but in absolute sorrow and pain, and you know, at the loss of the love of his life. And the minute Gobby just starts to insult Peter, you see Peter screaming, and then he goes up to the Goblin and he starts beating the Goblin to near death. I don't want Harry Osborn to be the Goblin that does this. I want it to be Norman Osborn that kills Gwen Stacy. Yeah, definitely keep all of that in the 4th film when Gwen dies. I mean, I could make another video on the topic of Peter and Gwen and what would happen with the Avengers battles in the MCU and stuff, but I would show off each film in depth and how I'd do it, but I don't like how Peter is going to Europe in the new film. And the supporting school cast has always bothered me. Zendaya and the Indian Flash are both just fucking lame to me. Marvel has good CG, but they should let Sony handle it on this one, and if it looks anything even remotely close to TASM 2, which has the best CG in any superhero film, then it would be amazing. Spider-Man is wisecracking, but not too much. MCU and TASM 2, the in-between. Peter would be nerdy, but not a skater or anything, and he would dress up like TASM's Peter. Also, I would have Midtown High not be such a nerdy school. Keep it exactly like TASM. And fun fact, they filmed TASM at my school, by the way, so cool. Anyways, that wraps up this video, guys. This is how I would have gone about Spider-Man in the MCU. If you would have done it differently, go ahead and sound off in the comments, and I'll be sure to hit you back. Let me know if you guys want me to make videos on my perfect Spider-Man films, or more about the MCU Spider-Man films by each movie in depth. I'll make one video per movie. Go ahead and let me know. And Rodan vs. King Caesar is taking ages to render, so sorry about the wait to my Kaiju fans out there. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more. This is King Kong 9100 signing out. See ya.